The story presented here is real and took place in a mountain environment. Some scenes and descriptions may not be suitable for sensitive viewers. This content is intended for audiences 18 years and older. Viewer discretion is advised. In the vast and unforgiving wilderness of the Ural Mountains, there is a place the locals call Kholat Syakhl. In the language of the indigenous Mansi people, this translates to a chilling prophecy, the Dead Mountain. In January 1959, 10 young, athletic, and experienced hikers set out to conquer this frozen wasteland. They were the elite of their generation, skilled in survival and seasoned by the brutal Russian winter. They were led by Igor Dyatlov, a man who knew these peaks better than his own home. But something happened on that mountain, something so terrifying that it forced 9 people to slash their way out of their own tent from the inside, fleeing into a frigid night without shoes, without coats, and without hope. When their bodies were finally found, the questions only multiplied. Mysterious radiation, internal injuries with no external marks, and a Soviet government that quickly buried the files under a top-secret seal. This isn't just the story of a winter trip gone wrong. This is the harrowing account of the Dyatlov group's final days and of a mystery that, 65 years later, refuses to die. The group consisted of 8 men and 2 women. Most were students or graduates of the Ural Polytechnic Institute. They weren't mere tourists. They were grade 2 hikers on their way to earning the highest certification available in the Soviet Union. To them, a trek through the snow was a challenge to be embraced, not feared. One member, Yuri Yudin, was forced to turn back early due to joint pain. As he said goodbye to his friends with a hug, he had no idea that a simple knee ache had just saved his life. He would be the only one to grow old. The others were marching toward their end. For days, the diaries they left behind spoke of great joy. They sang, told jokes, and documented the stunning yet lonely beauty of the Urals. But as they pushed deeper into the Dead Mountain range, the weather turned. Visibility dropped. The wind became a constant howling companion. On February 1st, instead of crossing a pass to find a more sheltered camp, Dyatlov made a fateful decision. They would camp right there on the exposed slope of Kholat Syakhl. It was a tactical choice. Perhaps he didn't want to lose the altitude they had gained. Or perhaps they were already exhausted by the blinding blizzard. As the sun set over the jagged horizon, the 9 hikers crawled into their sleeping bags, huddling together for warmth. It was 30 degrees below zero outside. They were safe, prepared, and together. But somewhere in the darkness of that mountain, something was moving. And in just a few hours, the screams would begin. When February 20th passed and no telegram arrived from the group, their families demanded answers. A search party of students and soldiers was dispatched. On February 26th, they found it, a solitary collapsed tent on the icy slopes of Kholat Syakhl. It was a nightmare scene. The tent was half buried in snow, but it hadn't been attacked from the outside. It had been sliced open from within. All their belongings, their warm coats, their boots, their axes, were still there. They had fled into a minus 30-degree night in their socks and underwear. The first 2 bodies were found under a giant cedar tree, nearly a mile downslope. They were barefoot, dressed only in undergarments. Their hands were burned, and branches of the tree were snapped 15 feet up, as if they were desperately trying to climb or see something behind them. 3 more bodies, including Igor Dyatlov's, were found between the tree and the tent, trying to crawl back. But they never made it. It took 2 more months to find the remaining 4 hikers. They were buried under 13 feet of snow in a ravine. And this is where the mystery shifts from tragedy to the impossible. These 4 didn't just die from the cold. They had severe internal injuries, broken ribs, fractured skulls. One expert said the force required was equivalent to a high-speed car crash. Yet there were no bruises, no external marks, and two of them were missing their eyes and their tongues. Soviet authorities closed the case quickly, blaming an unknown compelling force. But for the rest of the world, the investigation was only beginning. What could drive 9 professionals to run toward their deaths? Theory 1. Slab avalanche. A thick layer of snow slid over the tent, injuring the occupants and forcing an immediate escape. It's the most logical theory, but it doesn't explain why there were no physical signs of an avalanche, or why the hikers walked a mile away in an orderly fashion instead of digging out their gear. Theory 2. Secret military tests. This was during the height of the Cold War. Strange orange orbs were spotted in the sky that night by other hikers nearby. Some of the victims' clothing showed high levels of radiation. Did they witness something they weren't supposed to see? Was it a vacuum bomb test? Or a parachute mine that caused the internal trauma without leaving external marks? Theory 3. Infrasound. The unique shape of the mountain can create a phenomenon called a Kármán vortex street. This produces low-frequency sound waves that are silent to the ear, but devastating to the brain, causing intense feelings of panic, dread, and madness. Could the mountain itself have driven them insane? 65 years later, Dyatlov Pass remains a scar on the map and an enigma in our minds. Perhaps we will never know if it was nature, man, or something else entirely that claimed those 9 lives on Dead Mountain. But beyond the conspiracy theories, we remember them as they were: explorers, friends, and souls who reached for the peaks and found eternity. What do you believe happened that night? Was it a conspiracy or a tragic trick of nature? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to explore more stories of human endurance and the mysteries that haunt our history, subscribe and stay tuned. Until next time.